Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me for Roofing Contractors Best of Success podcast show. And welcome to Legal Insights. I'm Jill Bloom, group publisher of Roofing Contractor, and always honored to welcome our legal expert, Trent Cotney, partner with Adams and Reese. Trent, thank you so much for joining me.
Jill, it's great to see you again.
I know it hasn't been too long last week in Scottsdale. So a few weeks ago, Trent, roofing contractor, reported on a contractor in Ohio who succeeded in challenging an OSHA violation. I mean, that just seems really rare. How rare is that? And can you tell everybody a little bit about that case and what that contractor did?
Sure. This was an Ohio-based inspection, and it's kind of an interesting case. You know, the investigator, the COSHO, got to the job site. Had reports of several people up on a roof, variety of different violations that they cited the contractor with, but ultimately there was an issue as to whether or not that employer employed those individuals that were up on the roof. And what was interesting about this, Jill, is that there's about a 30-second video that was recorded where there's a lot of unsavory language and a lot of other stuff that's going back and forth between the contractor and OSHA. And, ultimately, though, despite everything that was in that video and everything that was said, OSHA was unable to prove that those people up on that roof were under care, custody, and control of that contractor. So the case itself was dismissed on that basis, that they couldn't prove that the employees were part of that, were employed by that contractor. Now, a couple of side notes, right? Just in general, obviously, I don't know the contractor, don't know the ins and outs of that particular case, but when you're dealing with OSHA, okay, there's a couple of things I always like to tell my clients. One is, especially if it's at the federal level, but it doesn't matter whether it's federal or state plan. Remember that you should always tell the truth. Always tell the truth. You should always cooperate, but know your rights. Okay, be civil, but don't be aggressive. Those are just a handful of things that I like to remind people. And remember, if you are in a situation where you are recording or you are saying something that is untrue, or you've done something that's a potential, violation of that, it could expose you to a lot of different problems. So be very careful about how you deal with any federal investigation, not just OSHA, but I'm saying, just watch out when you're dealing with inspectors, because it is it's important to understand what your rights are and how to assert them. That being said, this just shows that a lot of times OSHA can't prove 100% of what it's saying. It comes out and it'll throw citations out there, and it's up to you to kind of prove that they don't have the evidence that's needed, unfortunately. So just another example of that. And yeah, occasionally we see this. We see it every once in a while, where OSHA just has no evidence to support the claims that it's brought, and unfortunately that it requires the contractor to go through the process of hiring a lawyer and doing everything they've got to do in order to defend themselves. But yeah, interesting case.
Yeah, really interesting. So how do you know when you have a case? And I mean, it sounds pretty scary to try to fight OSHA.
Yeah, what I always do, and I get asked that a lot, right? We do a lot of OSHA defense all over the US. And I want to know what the facts are from their perspective, right? And based on that, I like to talk to the investigator, go to the informal conference if I can, get an idea of what evidence they have. Based on that, then I kind of assess it and say, here's your chances. We can look to resolve this. We can look to challenge it. This is kind of where I think things are. Every case is unique. Every case is different. But I think the best thing that you can do is gather as much information on what happened at the time of the incident and kind of assess where you are from there.
Wow. Yeah. So interesting. I mean, it's always great to hear when a contractor has actually beat OSHA. It doesn't happen
Right.
very often.
Right.
So another thing I wanted to talk to you about, it looks like there's the rate of the non-fatal workplace injuries has increased in 2021. What does everybody need to know about that?
Yeah, it's interesting because for the longest time, for decades now, they've tried to track injuries, both non-fatal and fatal, and show efficacy through use of OSHA and regulations and things of that nature. So there's statistics are an interesting thing, right?
Yeah, you can always twist them around, right?
Yeah, you have to kind of take a look at them and see what's what. It's also interesting, is it really an uptick, or is it more a result of electronic record keeping and reporting and requirements that are now exist that maybe did not exist previous, right? So I always take some of the OSHA statistics with a grain of salt. That being said, I do think that I know just based on the phone calls I get that there's a lot of injuries out there, a lot of
Sure.
injuries. We've had a handful of fatalities this year, unfortunately, but the serious injuries continue, and it's always something that you want to stay vigilant on, and train, whatever you can do, to make sure that you are adequately training your employees. Every penny you spend on pennies, a penny well spent.
Sure. And, also Trent, with data like that, I mean, should contractors expect premiums to rise? Do you see that happening across the board?
Yeah. I mean, anytime you have injuries like that, you can expect your workers' comp premiums to increase. And those kind of statistics are the things that your insurers are paying attention to. So,
Yeah.
if you don't want to do it for the safety of your employees, do it for your bottom line. One of the other things that has kind of come up recently from the world of OSHA is we've seen a regional emphasis on cranes and rigging in the Texas area. And that's interesting because there's been a lot of fatalities, a lot of injuries, and a lot of damage related to crane collapse. The fact that we're seeing an emphasis program regionally suggests to me that we may start to see that spread, and eventually it may join the Fatal 4 and heat injury and illness as one of the emphasis programs on a national level. So stay tuned for more on that one, Jill, because I think we're going to hear more.
Like you said, train and train and train. So
yes.
Awesome. Well, again, Trent, thank you so much for your time. We always appreciate your nuggets of information. If anybody has any questions, how do people get a hold of you?
Sure. Trent.Cotney@arlaw.com.
Fabulous. And if anybody has any questions for us, it's roofingcontractor.com. And while you're there, make sure you sign up for our free e-newsletters. It's free to register for our website, so you can stay up to date on all our great podcasts and videos like we're doing with Trent today. Most importantly, stay safe and healthy. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks again, Trent.